All right, what's going on, y'all? I this is the second time attempting this. I don't know where the live chat is. That's why I redid it. But anyway, um, this week, sort of vlog, live discussion, whatever it is. I don't know how it's going to be a discussion because I don't see a live chat, but that's okay. Because I got a lot of notes and I got a lot to talk about. Because this week, yeah, I mean, exactly like the title said, I feel like I've discovered and I am discovering a new side of love. And I can't help but think about my series on love that I did. I think 7 videos, 7 series. Um, but it's just another facet of that really kind of shook me to my core. And it's something I've been thinking about for a long time, this thing that it suddenly just kind of I don't know, awakened. I realized it. I had a light bulb moment, and it was just like things just kind of clicked into place. And so that thing that I was thinking about for a while, and it kept popping up time and time again in my life throughout the past year, is this thing about expectations. Um, so reoccurring theme, and I get something that I kept hearing people say time and time again when they would talk about relationships. I mean, I even caught myself saying it. This thing about no expectations, and I think I kind of understood what even I meant by that, but at the same time, I didn't really understand what I meant by that because it was in a way saying what I thought, at least. Now my opinion has changed, but in a way, I was saying like no responsibility, no accountability, no expectations. So that's kind of where my head was at when I was saying it. Um, but then it led to an awakening moment. And let's just say my life, through a series of events, I came face to face with this thing of expectations. So it was just bothering me because I would hear time and time again, no expectations, no expectations. And that would be in relationships, in a number of relationships, in general, not necessarily romantic, but in romantic as well. And so I was like, what is this thing about no expectations? I get it, but I don't get it because I started thinking about it differently. I'm just like, is it healthy to not have expectations in a relationship? Like, what does that what does that mean? Because I sort of understood the no expectations, but then I really started to think about it hard because it kept coming up, and I was like, is it is it healthy to not have expectations? Or in a relationship, should you have expectations? So, expectations. This is what I thought that it meant to have expectations in a relationship, or why I thought it was necessary to have expectations in a relationship. Um, I was basically what I was doing is I realized this through like a series of events in a relationship, but also throughout my life, I kind of realized I have been placing expectations on so many people, on friendships, on best friendships, on in my relationships, on family, on my mom and dad, and this is how I thought about it. Like if somebody loves you, and they say that they love you, then you have the expectation that they are going to act on that love, and that you're going to put that expectation on them to fulfill that love. And if they do, then you can trust them, and therefore they fulfill that need. And so it's like somebody says, I love you. And so you're like, okay, do I believe that? So now I have an expectation put in place that you actually do love me. And I'm imagining that I'm going to have that expectation filled. Um, and then once that expectation is met, in my head, this is the way I used to think, is that that's how trust is built. That you were able to meet this expectation of love, of one of my needs, whether that be physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, whatever, that I had the expectation and you met that expectation. So now I trust you. Um, there's a lot of issues with that. In my head, that made sense, but actually, that's codependency. And I didn't even realize that. I didn't even put two and two together until I really started thinking about this. And so I was like, wow, that is has been this pattern throughout my life, that essentially I haven't been able to love myself, and so I have been expecting that from other people. And I'll go through a period of like I'll feel really alone, and then I'll have to learn to love myself in a new and different way. And then I'll enter into a relationship of some kind, and then I'll say, all right, now they're going to fill that need. And so I kind of slack off on like my self-love because I'm just expecting them to fill that need. And I was like, no, that's what relationship is. Well, that's not what relationship is. That's not how it should be. That's not how it should operate. That's codependency. And I've been realizing that I am a recovering codependent. It sounds weird to say, but I'm a recovering codependent. Um, so why does this not work? As if it doesn't already make sense as to why this doesn't work. So just going to read through the notes that I wrote down. If someone doesn't meet your expectations, especially when those expectations are to be loved and having your needs met, you back off and you create walls. So you create this expectation of love, saying, I expect you to love me. And then when inevitably they don't meet that expectation, you get hurt, you get let down, maybe you feel disappointed, whatever. Then you build up a wall and you say, well, I'm not going to let that happen again. And you create a divide between you and that person when you actually love that person. And in actuality, that person probably loves you too, but maybe they don't know how to, maybe they're running on empty. Maybe that love tank, right, is not full, not filled. And so they're running on empty. And so they actually, that's codependency. And I didn't see it from that perspective of expectations until I really thought about it. And I'm like, that's codependency. That's not what love is. So by having expectations for people that, you're like, I'm expecting you to love me, you're going to be let down, and then you're going to create walls, and it's going to create a further divide. And then there's all these fears that are going to come in, and it's going to be hectic. um Expectations. Okay, so this is, I don't know why I wrote this down with a bunch of negative things, but side note, expectations are healthy when communicated properly. So I was going to mention that at the end of the video, but here it is in my notes. So but without expectations, when there's no communication there, it's only going to hurt you and let you down. Not because they don't love you, but maybe they need time. So I just pretty much explained that. So this is common sense, right? You have to be filled with love in order to give it. So if you're not being filled, if you're not filled yourself, then you're just looking for it through other people, and you're always going to be let down, and you'll never really understand how to love. So it's like, is wrapping this whole picture of what I thought, this expectations, building trust, what I thought it meant. You meet someone, you say, they say, I love you. You create an expectation there that they're going to be the ones that are going to meet your needs, right? And when, and if they do, then you think, oh, this is the development of trust. I say you, this is how I thought. Oh, where I'm developing trust. And it's like they're meeting this need, they're meeting this expectation. And so I'm trust is being developed. Now, this is taking into account that it wasn't communicated that you're expecting them to meet this need. If it is communicated properly, it could work. But hypothetically speaking, you didn't communicate that. You just assumed. You created an expectation that, okay, they said they're going to love me, and so I'm creating an expectation that they're going to love me. And if they meet that expectation, then that's going to build trust, right? This is not the correct way of thinking, but this is how I was thinking. Um, so that's if they do meet that expectation, and that could go on for a while, but inevitably, like the expectation isn't going to be met. So if they don't meet that expectation, or when it happens that they don't meet that expectation, then you're going to be let down, and you're going to start putting walls up, and you're going to say, you know what, I'm not going to let them back in again because now I'm constantly being let down. And you're just going to put walls up. And that's really out of your own doing because you created expectations, and that's just what happens. Like, you can play that codependency game for so long, but sooner or later you're both going to be running on fumes. The relationship is going to be running on fumes, and it's just not a healthy thing. Uh, so the walls are going to come up. But like I said, expect. Okay, so scratch that. Not like I said because I haven't mentioned this yet. Um, but creating expectations for yourself can be beneficial. That's where expectations can come into play because if you create expectations for yourself, expectations that you know you can meet, and you gotta have grace with yourself, and you gotta be easy with yourself, then it can be beneficial because then when you meet your own expectations, you end up feeling fulfilled in life. Like you just feel accomplished, right? So, um, removing expectations. Now, what does so removing those expectations? What does that look like to not operate in the way that I just talked about for 10 minutes, right? Jesus, I talked about that for 10 minutes. No wonder why people were leaving. But what does it, so removing those expectations, what does that look like? What does that mean? So I think that this is a whole other side to unconditional love that trust isn't built on expectations. Trust is built on love, and that love starts with yourself. It starts with self-love. And I would venture to say, I don't know if that makes any sense, but I would say that um, if you find yourself creating expectations in a relationship that aren't communicated, you're probably struggling with loving yourself. You're probably struggling with self love. And when we love ourselves unconditionally, which is what I have been learning to do, because I've realized that I don't know how to love myself unconditionally. I've craved unconditional love from other people, but I never really stopped to ask myself, what does it look like for me to unconditionally, without expectations, love myself? And I know I just said it can be healthy to create expectations for yourself, but that's a whole other discussion because they have to be realistic. And obviously, you have to meet them. And if you don't, and there's this whole thing with overthinking and perfectionism, I get all that. Um, but anyway, back to what I was saying. When we love ourselves unconditionally, the love that we receive from people it should only be the love that we see for ourselves. And if we don't accept it, it's because we don't see that part of ourselves, and it's because we don't love that part of ourselves. And so, removing these expectations, right, from other people. Now, just picture this. This is like this for some reason clicked with me, and I'm trying my best to explain it in a manner that is well communicated. And I'm going to try my best. If I keep running in circles, it's because I'm having trouble articulating it myself. But this is the best I can do as of right now. Is that what love, unconditional love, first off, looks like is a love without expectations. Imagine, so if you're like me and you thought that way that I was thinking, imagine loving somebody w- completely void of expectations. Like, I understand how to love myself. And so I actually don't need you to fill these areas of my life because I know how to love myself. Therefore, since I know how to unconditionally love myself, I finally understand how I can love you. Now, uh, the Bible verse that comes to mind, love your neighbor as yourself. We hear that so much in church. I heard it so much in church growing up, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. And so if you follow that logic, you can't truly love your neighbor if you don't love yourself. Um, and that's just, this is another facet of that. Having unconditional love towards somebody, zero, absolutely zero expectations of them. You're just constantly in a state where you're able to be filled and you're giving. and you're saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. I expect nothing from you. And I completely, unconditionally love you without conditions. Without conditions, it's like, duh, that means without expectation. But I don't know why I didn't put the two and two together. So yeah, I think I would say when we love ourselves unconditionally, love that we see for ourselves. If we don't accept it, it's because we don't love ourselves. So for trust, right, when we are loving unconditionally, um, that trust is something that we give to that person, and we're like, we hope that you're going to catch us. We hope that, if we fall, you're going to be there. We hope, we are trusting you with this, whatever that is, trusting you with this. And we really hope that you are going to be there. And if you are, we might give you a little bit more and we might let you in a little bit more. That's not to say that I've built up walls. It's just to say that you've shown that you value me as much as I value me. And so because of that, I'm going to let you in a little bit more because I really value myself. And so I'm not going to let you in if you don't value me as much as I do. And so because I value me and because now since I've given you something and I can trust you, I'm going to let you in a little bit more. And if they don't, if they break that trust, then it's like, you know what? That's okay because I know how to love myself. And you have just shown me that maybe they don't, maybe, that they might have a whole bunch of other issues, but you've just shown me that I actually don't need to put my trust in you because it might hurt or it might do a lot of things, right? Um, but then there's the whole thing about forgiveness, and that's a whole other discussion of forgiving but not forgetting. You forgiving but not forgetting, but the whole forgive and forget. I think true forgiveness is somewhat forgetting, but then there's wisdom where you don't want to forget, and then that could have to do with that gets into breaking trust and are you going to forgive them, and if what does that mean? Does that mean you forget, or does that mean that you don't forget and you remember, which is wise? There's a balance there. But all that to say, if they break your trust, you say, you know what, that's okay, I still love you, I'm just not going to give you that much, that part of me. So hopefully that kind of does justice to what I was feeling. Because when this all hit me, when just a series of events happened and this all hit me, I broke down in my room and I was like, I've never known love. Like, it was just a whole other side of love that I just hadn't seen, that was just revealed to me. And I was like, dude, I've never known unconditional love. And that's something that I've been discovering about myself. Is I think I grew up in, and this is, maybe this is blaming religion, I don't, probably probably, just gonna be honest. But I have not known love that's unconditional. I've always known it with conditions. So this is me learning to love myself unconditionally and what that looks like. And of course, it's happened through relationship with other people, which is incredible, which is amazing, which is the whole point of a relationship. um but when I found this, when I discovered this, when I realized this, I was like, this is like, I this is another side of love that I didn't know, and that was not hidden. It was buried and I just couldn't see it. And I feel like I got eyes to see it. And it was just great. It was amazing. So anyway, the last point that I want to make, which is kind of a question, is if you've heard all this, if you've heard everything that I'm saying in creating expectations for people, this is just a thought that I had, right? This is just a crazy out there thought that I had. But how many expectations have we put on some sort of higher power. Now that gets into a whole whole other discussion because it's like, well, maybe we should have these expectations because these are the blessings and promises that we were promised. Whatever. You understand what I'm saying. Maybe we should have expectations. Maybe we shouldn't. And what would happen to us if we didn't? What would happen to the relationship with the unknown? Not saying God, not saying Christianity, not saying any other religion, the universe, whatever. I would call it the universe. What if we had zero expectations and learned how to love ourselves? What do you think that would, how do you think that would play out? What do you think that would do? Maybe you are a God believing person and you're watching this and seeing this. Have you put expectations on God? I did. I did. And I was let down time and time and time again. And maybe that's the reason I don't believe in him anymore. Him, it, whatever it is. There's something out there. I'm getting into a whole different thing that you can watch my other videos on. But I read a book a while ago that was called Disappointed with God. And I read the book and it was an okay book. But I gotta say, a lot of people are disappointed with the divine for a number of reasons. And it gets into a thing of maybe you're blaming being itself, maybe you're blaming the universe, but in actuality, you just don't know how to love yourself. And if you don't learn how to love yourself, like let's say, okay, just hypothetically speaking, I'm just ranting at this point, but let's say the universe is, something, right? The universe is a higher power, something. I'm gonna be honest with you right now. I had a whole thought and I just forgot what it was. Oh man. Um, yeah, I have no idea where I was going with that. I'm gonna be really real with you. Um, oh no, I know exactly where I was going with it. See, I'm not gonna edit this video, so I'm not gonna edit that out. You're welcome. Let's say the universe is a thing. There is a higher power out there. La da 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 da. And you never learn this lesson of self-love, right? I don't know where I've heard this, but it's something along the lines of if you don't learn this specific lesson in life, then that lesson is just going to keep coming round and round and round back to you until you learn it. What if that's what happens with being let down by the universe, by the divine? That we're not actually being let down. The universe is just creating space for us to learn a lesson that we need to learn. And maybe that lesson is we need to be able to love ourselves instead of just depending on the divine or the unknown or the universe or whatever you want to call it. Interesting thought. Curious what you all think down in the comments. And I have absolutely no idea where the chat is because I can't see it. I don't even know if there is a chat. So if you all are chatting with me, I can't see it. So yeah, that's where I'm going to end it. But I would love to hear your all's thoughts. And if you got questions that you are typing in the chat and I can't see it, leave them down in the comments. And I would love to have more discussion down there. So that's it for today. Like, subscribe, share. Thank all of you. I'm thanking all of you for coming to this and watching. I wish the chat was working because then I could talk with you all more. But subscribe. This will be a thing on Friday nights. I'm gonna make it happen. So I will, yeah, see you guys around. Thanks for watching.